without further ado, I'd like to introduce Todd Richards, Steve Caballero, and Christian Hosoi.
This is incredibly awkward, but I guess we're going to do like a little one-on-one and kind of just talk between each other here about just some of the roles that aging action sports athletes can take with companies. So let's just jump right into this.
Who's aging?
Well, not mentally.
As if you want to last.
Yeah, hey, let's congratulate Mr. Caballero for his victory at the X Games. Excuse me. Christian, sorry.
And Cab.
So we're going to start right in on this. I'll just ask you, Cabby. What role should athletes play in marketing themselves once they've been picked up by companies?
Well, I can tell you the role that I chose, and that was just to pretty much please my sponsors and basically do everything they wanted me to do. You know, I went on tours, did lots of demos, entered contests, was constantly trying to progress, and I just felt, really, really blessed to be able to have this experience of being able to skate these skateboard parks I would only see in the magazines, and I was just honored and, like I said, blessed to be sponsored. And I knew that once I got sponsored, that it was no longer just a fun thing to do; it was a job.
Christian, I just adding to that. Did you when you guys first got picked up by your sponsors? Was it more? Did you guys feel the sense of responsibility straight away? You know what I mean? Did you feel a big pressure to go out there and perform right away?
I was super young, and so at 12, 12 years old, all I wanted to do was rip. That's all I thought about was learning tricks every single day. But when the sponsors came, it was almost like, getting a Christmas, present every month in the mail. So I was just an excited kid at the time. But as it grew, it definitely became a responsibility that you had to keep up. And if you wanted to excel and get paid more money, you had to market yourself in a certain... And I learned very young to be able to do that. And I think that that's where some kids know how to market themselves and some kids don't, and no matter how talented they are, it makes a difference. It really does.
I mean, coming from the snowboard world right now, I think there's a very few amount of people that actually move product. Their image actually sells any type of product. So, I think a lot of it has to do with, building the brand of you. And, from my point of view, being the age that I am, I'm no longer even able to compete with the young kids anymore. So it's more about how do you keep relating to them and keep relating to the retailer and just basically pushing the brand. And, for myself, it's, you just have to, you want to maintain your own image and push the image of the company at the same time. And basically just, trying to deliver a cohesive message from the company and yourself, and not really, contradict one another.
Well, being a skateboarder, we have a lot of creativity, and as far as we have a lot of ways to be able to promote ourselves in our own way, and we have pretty much been our own bosses as far as how much effort we've put into the sport. And obviously the people who have succeeded are the ones that have worked really hard at it and try to figure out ways that they could promote themselves and stay current and keep busy. And I was very fortunate to have a team manager / coach back then, and his name was Stacy Peralta. And he was coach for Tony Hawk and Mike McGill and Lance Mountain, and he really brought us up and showed us what it was to be a professional skateboarder. So I think because of that, I have a long-lasting career, and I just didn't get into the industry not knowing what to do. I had a really good role model to look after, and this is what I hope to do for future generations too, is be a great role model for all the upcoming skaters.
Well, I mean, just coming from my point of view, you guys I've known you guys from magazines since I was a Grom, coming up, following you guys, and I don't really like to talk about myself in this way just because it's just, I don't know, it's weird for me, but in order to even stay relevant and have kids even know who you are, you've got, we've all done really well at self-branding. And basically, whether you call it milking or actually knowing the other side of the business, it's not just about flipping around upside down, doing kickflips, and, just trying to be the crazy person. You've got to, it's a business for sure. And you basically have to be available to your sponsor, be able to do what they want you to do. And I think it's really important at the same time not going against, what you've created for yourself in the beginning. Because we all switch sponsors, and it's like you've got to be able to bring yourself to the sponsor instead of just turning your whole image around to ride for a different brand. So.
Yeah, you gotta love what you do. I think that skaters today may skate for the wrong reason, and if you're a brand or a sponsor or even a skater, I think that makes the difference in how much you're gonna trust them and to really depend on them to represent your brand and for me to represent my sponsor. And I think that that's something that you have to have common sense. You just can't look at the hottest kid and think, okay, he's the hottest kid. You have to look at a whole package. And for me, I always, represented myself as the whole package, not just my skateboarding. And so I was a little bit flamboyant. I did a lot of crazy things in my day. But I really marketed myself in a way that was professional. I was there. I may have showed up late, but I put on a good show. You know what I mean? I really did make sure that I stayed there till the end. Fulfilled my responsibilities with the fans and the kids that you sign autographs for. Where today I hear a lot of stories about kids that have a bad attitude that are some of the best guys in the world, and it's disappointing. And I think that can sponsors usually look past that because they're looking at the money, at keeping them on, but in the long term, it could hurt your brand. But you'll make money, but the reputation is just not as great. I think that you need to kind of oversee that, and I think that that's where skaters today, the ones that last a long time, are the ones that really love what they do, and I think it shows with who's around and who's not around.
Here's the next kind of just alluding to this is social media, YouTube, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. Do you think it's easier to create a personal brand today for yourself, or do you think it's more difficult as far as with so many kids coming up? Where do you see the whole social media thing coming into this as far as self-promotion of Steve Caballero via the World Wide Web?
Well, I haven't took advantage of Twitter yet, but I definitely take advantage of Facebook, and it's definitely a blessing to have that because it's free advertising. I promote my life, I promote my sponsors, I promote my family life. So it's definitely a great avenue that I've used. I really haven't tapped into YouTube as well. Other people kind of post videos and stuff, but definitely MySpace and Facebook have been really good avenues to help me promote new products that I've been putting out, and I'm also in the art scene now as well, so I've been able to sell artwork as well on there. So they're great avenues, and for kids, it's definitely a great tool to help promote yourself and easy access to what you're doing.
Christian, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. YouTube, everybody talks about watching all my clips on YouTube, and even when a kid says, will you check out my sponsor me video, they go check me out on YouTube. And so it is a great resource for a company or even the rider to be able to get them out there or resource their footage to be able to watch them skate. And I've gotten kids say, check my thing out on YouTube, and it was very horrible. And I'm like, that's pretty cool and optimistic of a kid to say, check it out, and it's not that good. But then I've seen some kids that are, just excellent footage. And so it is a good place for that. And like he said, we use Facebook and MySpace to connect with people, to speak with people that are around the world. They're not just here, and people that normally would never get to talk to you. And so it is a great place to, connect with your fan base, or even, if you're a brand, you could even promote your brand and products there.
I think so too. I mean, for myself, I've always taken time out to talk to every single kid that's ever come up, and usually to the point of like I'm sitting there way too long talking to them. But you know, like all the social media sites, I think they're really important. I think that it's even more important to respond and to interact. You know, there's a lot of people that put a lot of garbage up on their sites. It's just video, video, video. But it just gets to the point, like if you go to a demo, and you're going to take if the athlete is negative to you in any way, or you're going to take that with you for the rest of your life. I mean, there's people that I've met coming up when I was a fan of skating, or whatever negative responses I've taken with me. I remember it like it happened yesterday. But I think it's really important, like they remember the positive stuff too. If someone just takes the time to respond to these kids, no matter, everyone was goofy once. Everyone didn't have a clue at one point, myself included. I completely don't have a clue anymore right now either, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of these kids, if you take the time and you get on their level, I think it can make a very big impact. What advice do you have for brands choosing and working with athletes to create value and longevity? I'm going to just answer this one first, just because I think it's really important to... my snowboard company, O-Matic Snowboards, I've always put people on there based on personality, pretty much. That's about an 80%. Because every kid that is snowboarding these days can do all the tricks. If they're 15 years old and they've been snowboarding for 3 years, chances are they're better than I am. But it's like, will they actually sell product? Will they actually, do they have whatever the it factor is? And that's, I've always kind of just thought of like, would I be able to travel with my entire team in a car for 7 hours somewhere? And that's really comes down to personality. Are the personalities mesh? Is everyone, who's going to give you grief? Like, is it predictable, basically? And will they be positive, and will they interact with kids really well? So that's my 2 cents on that, and what to look for is basically someone with a positive attitude. You guys have any insight on that one?
I kind of agree with you. What Todd said. No, yeah, I definitely look at that too. I think attitude is probably the biggest thing that a person can carry with them that will determine their longevity in the sport. And definitely when you have a positive attitude and you're open-minded and you're willing to work hard and not forget where you came from, definitely you're gonna succeed. But unfortunately, there's a lot of kids, like Christian said, that aren't into this sport for the right reasons, and they just kind of see the big picture, and they don't really see what it took to get there. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's not just, the money and the fame. There's a lot that goes into it. So definitely the personality of the person. If they're cool, they're cool to travel with, because there's a lot of great skaters out there, but when they have bad attitudes, their skating doesn't look so great after a while, and you don't even really want them on your team. So I think attitude is one of the biggest things that people need to look at if they want to have a rider for a long time.
I could see from both sides, because I've been the rider and then I've sponsored kids, and I still sponsor kids today. And, back in the day, it used to be, if you can handle me, being on the company, doing the crazy stuff that I did. And that's kind of like the attitude kids have today. They're like, you need to serve me because they're so popular and they make the company money. But as I sponsored kids at like 18 years old, I became an actual company. I owned my own company at 17, Hosoi Skateboards, sponsored pros, traveled around, had a big wheel team. And it does make a difference if you can hang out with them. But at the same time is will they be able to hang out with me? Because I was such a heckler, and I was so, I guess, into the whole thing that skateboarding gives, the fame, the money. I mean, I was just eating it all up at the time. But then when I got a hold of myself a little bit later, a couple of years into my company, I realized that, yeah, it's just like he said. It's, can I take this guy on a plane? Can he stay in my hotel room? Do I want to go out to eat with him? Does he represent, is he not going to look like, a jerk out there?
Liabilities.
Yeah. And it does affect the image of the brand, and I affect the image of my brands, Vans, Quicksilver, the major companies that I ride for, and I think that I want to, make that, I want to affect the brand positively because it does help my career, not only my career, but my reputation. And I look at my reputation today as something important to me, where back in the day, my reputation was almost like I was trying to build a reputation. I didn't even have one yet, and my image of that was just so, like, I had to jump through all these hoops to be the #1 guy all the time, and there was a lot of pressure. And I'm sure all these kids get a lot of pressure like that, all the kids coming up on your brand. But at the same time, I think that needs to be molded by the brands and the team managers like himself or myself to be able to, give them, encourage them to have a long career rather than a short, fast, hot one. Because we can milk kids and get money out of them, and then they're next, that's how it used to be back in the day. It was like, once you get to about 21 years old, they're like, okay, Christian, you're about ready to retire. These new kids are coming in. We're going to be cutting your check. And I was like, you're kidding me, right? I was like, no way. But obviously, we're sitting up here still having a career, and I'm laughing now, but at the same time, it was because of my, perseverance as a skater, and I think that's what we like to see in our riders, that they persevere, that they're committed, they are loyal, and I think that's missing in the industry in a lot of sense because there's so much money in it that people jump and go to different teams for maybe money reasons, but at the same time, if you look at the facts, a lot of times that I switched a brand was because of problems with the sponsors and the backing, where nobody saw. They just saw me switching a brand. So you have to look at the facts a lot of times because there can be issues with that. But keeping it solid as a company, as a brand, and me as a skater, those are things that we really need to look at because it's such a big industry now. And I have to really, it's almost like you interview your riders now. You have to, go through that process. It's not like, okay, you can do all these tricks, you're on the team. So it's a total package.
And it goes both ways for myself, just being a rider and also, having to be responsible for kids. It's communication is at a paramount. I mean, if you can't pay them a whole bunch of money, communicate with them and help them. Offer something else besides a paycheck at the end of the day. Because a lot of these kids need advice. It's like there is so much money flipping around in this industry right now, and a lot of these kids are being given these flash-in-the-pan dollar offers, but they don't know how to prepare for when it goes away. And I think that's really, it's a responsibility that the industry and a whole, all the agents that are floating around now, I think a lot of these people need to start to prepare these kids for when they're in our position that we're in, or even, transitioning out of the sports, because a lot of these kids don't, it's such an ego industry where, you start believing the me show from day one, because that's all it is. It's just, you are the brand, you're the brand, you're the brand, build yourself up, and then no one likes you anymore. And how do kids deal with that when it's over? So something to think about. Whole other conversation. What's your feeling about the sudden increase over the past years of made-for-TV type competitions? Well, I would imagine that any big dollar event these days there's a TV is first and foremost. I mean, whether it be Dew Tour, X Games, the Olympics, it's all big money for TV. And I don't know, I think that we need it for exposure, but I think that a lot more could be done to work hand in hand with giving the right message and working with the athletes. I think that it's being done a lot better than it used to be, as far as Dew Tour and X Games. And I mean, you guys, just this past weekend, how is that whole thing, working? Is it better than it used to be with X Games and stuff, or is it, how do you feel about the whole made-for-TV circuses?
Well, I think the whole industry over a lot of years has benefited from television. I mean, everybody does because it's just great exposure. And I know back in the 80s, the companies that I rode for were totally against TV and totally against big companies coming in, and they wanted to have this grasp on the industry and keep it for themselves, which it was keeping the sport from growing. And when ESPN came in and decided they want to do the X Games, I mean, they really, really made the sport grow. You know, of course, other people were making money as well, but you have to think about it. Who's to say we own this industry? Or who's to say we own anything? It should be open to share to everybody. So if someone wants to come in and make some money, I mean, they're just as eligible as you are. So I think as being a pioneer of the sport, I think it's our duty and responsibility to educate these people, but, you know, bring them hand in hand, and if they want to spread dollars around, go ahead. If they want to leave tomorrow, go ahead. But we're still going to be here because we love the sport. But to cut that off and not allow the sport to grow and other people to be a part of it, I think you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So I think television has been a great thing. I had a great time this weekend with Christian and all the other legends, and we've been very fortunate to have careers that have lasted this long. And it's great. I mean, I had a great time at X Games. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah. You know, even though we weren't on TV for the X Games live, I think that it would be great to. I think it would be excellent for the fans and for people that want to watch, because everybody wanted to see us ride on TV. And I think that they should show like maybe the finals and get us on there, because I think it's just cool, you know, to see, you know, Caballero on TV. Not talking about myself, but if I was a fan of skateboarding, I would be stoked to actually see that, because what sport do you have out there that you have guys in their 40s still skating competition together and people want to come and see it? But I remember skating in, I believe it was like 85, right here, US Open, and ESPN showed us on TV for the first time. And I got so much exposure out of that, it was incredible. I couldn't believe it. It was like all of a sudden I rocketed to like celebrity status, you know, to the mainstream people. And so definitely the TV contest, they you know, the skaters themselves have an identity of it, which it's like, okay, I don't skate on TV. I'm a video guy. I'm a hardcore street skater. And then you have those that are only media darlings that do it. And so there's this dynamic that goes on, but you know, they're starting to get involved because they're actually meshing together now, and they're doing the competitions the way that skaters want. They're actually listening. The courses are getting more to their specs. And just like World Cup of Skateboarding, they've been listening to the riders, and the competitions, the formats have been evolving and changing. And I think that that's all meshing with the networks, you know, and being shown on TV to where, you know, obviously we're seeing all these contests on TV. And I think it's great. It gives, you know, people an opportunity to you know, have a career. But, you know, skateboarding's radical. I think that, you know, almost like we're doing things against the grain in the industry, marketing-wise, because in what sport can you not ever enter a contest and be like the most popular guy and sell the most product? It just, there isn't one. But in skateboarding there is, because it is image, it is built on attitude and you know, character, and I think that's what's so cool about skateboarding. But as we as business people have to figure out how to, you know, harness all that and keep it authentic to the heart and soul of the sport, but yet market it and sell product, I think that's where we all have a responsibility to do it, you know, in a way that's complementary to our industry and to our sport. And I think that's what I want to give back to skateboarding. That's why I'm here. You know, I started my own company because I said, I'm going to not skate one day. I'm going to be a business guy. You know, at 17, I thought that. And here I am today. I'm actually skating more than I'm doing business. But, you know, we still have to keep that in mind all the time?
I mean, for myself, I think that X Games has definitely done a lot for snowboarding as far as exposure to the masses. We have the Olympics as well, which is a whole other ball of wax. And regardless of what the opinion is of how these things are done on TV, kids bust their ass to get to the top of the competition, to make the finals in all these events. So if you strip away all the, you know, the huge sponsors and freaking NASA and whoever else is sponsoring the X Games next year, it's all, you know, it comes down, the riders are the ones that are killing themselves to get to the finals. So if you can look past all the craziness and just, these kids have a lot of passion, because just to make the final these days in skating, snowboarding, surfing, it's way more, that's the soul of the sport, because these kids are killing themselves, and there's been a lot of people that have been hurt in the past year to try to accomplish these things. So I think that's, just look past it and kind of look to that. There's going to be exposure, negative and positive, but at the end of the day, it's all about just basically the passion to get there. So I guess we're going to open it up for questions. So does anyone have any questions? Someone over there in the back. Oh, Tanya, you already asked a question. Let's have somebody else ask a question.
I have a question.
Okay, go.
As seasoned athletes that have accomplished what you have in your sports, and now you're major contributors to companies, as people who run companies, do you feel that it is important to participate in the sports that you are trying to market out there to the rest of the world?
You already know how I feel about that, so I'll ask these guys. What do you think about that, Gabby? Do you think it's really important for a company owner to actually participate in the sport that they're ramming down the consumer's throat?
Well, I'm not a company owner, and I never have been. I've ridden for the same company since 1979, and that's Pau Peralta. And I've been riding for Vans since 1988. So, pass that question on to Christian.
I can answer that. Definitely. It definitely helps. I mean, it's helped me along the way, and I'm having fun at the same time. I mean, that's why I'm in this, you know what I mean? I'm not really here for the money. I'd still be skateboarding if I didn't make money. You know what I mean? That's the difference, I think, that the attitude of skateboarders when we started, it wasn't for the money. It was all sheer passion, you know? And then money came with it, and we were like, wow, this is cool. So as a business owner, and if you can't skate, surf, or snowboard, or whatever it is that you're doing, and be a participant in it, it only represents your brand to say, look, I actually really love to do what I'm a part of selling and the products that I'm into, and you're actually testing it out with the people, especially your employees that are with you, because if you're just behind the desk and you're saying, I was this and I'm just doing the business now and I'm counting numbers, well, you know what? Where's your participation? Do you really love what you're doing, or is it for, you know, and there's nothing wrong with being the guy behind the desk, making the money, making sure that all your employees are doing a great job and your business ethics are good and they're representing the brand well. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you can skate and surf and snow, I mean, might as well have fun while you're doing business, right? I mean, that's what I call a board meeting, you know? When I'm out in the pool having a board meeting, you know, with all my friends, and so it definitely helps.
And just to tap on your question again, personally, I would go a different approach. If I had my own company, I would probably get behind the skaters more and concentrate on them, trying to help push them. And I would definitely concentrate on thinking of ways I could make the company grow. So I probably wouldn't be competing, because I'd like to focus on the company and make that successful. Because if it's my company, I want to look after it. I don't want someone else having to look after that for me.
I agree. I mean, I think that it's really important, though, for whoever owns whatever company to know what it's like to be sore after a session, just so they can, you know what it's like to have a sore back from snowboarding, or sore arms from surfing, or your ankles hurt from skating. It just helps you to relate to the consumer, helps you to relate to your team, everyone down the chain. So, any other questions?
Danielle?
Hi, Danielle.
So I'm Danielle skateboarding, and I've been with Christian and Hosoi as long as Christian and Hosoi have been with each other almost, I think. So my question to you guys, do you think there's a new generation disconnect with the skaters, such as Sheckler's age, not to pick on Sheckler, but his age has not known skateboarding without the X Games? What is he, 17 or 18 now, and the X Games are 16? Do you think there's a disconnect in how you guys came through the days of self-promoting, hands-on, direct connect, and the skaters of the new day that are, Christian, I think you referred to it as media darlings, because they don't know it any different, but do you think they have a disconnect and they're not hands-on enough? Back in the day when Tony would come to an event and he'd have his van for Birdhouse, he had everybody booked out. Probably Todd Hastings did too for Powell and so on. Everybody was booked out for shop appearances, distributor demos, and that kind of thing when there was a contest in that particular town, such as Chicago. I don't see the teams doing that anymore. They're not taking advantage of events. Do you think there's a disconnect?
So a disconnect from teammates or the industry?
I'm sorry, a disconnect between the young, really successful media skater right now and his public, the kids.
I think Sheckler's doing an excellent job, or he wouldn't be in his position that he's in. I think it's just a different time and different era as far as where the sport is and how people promote themselves. And back in the day, we were traveling in small vans, you know, skating to 50 people and getting $50 for first place, you know, but it's just different now. You know, it's a different time, and obviously if he wasn't doing his job right, he wouldn't be in his position, so I think he's doing an excellent job.
Kids now, X Games are coming to town, or Do Tour's coming to town. Kids come to them. They don't have to necessarily go to, you know, the stores anymore. I mean, there's still a bunch of tours. Everyone still goes and tours around, but I think that a lot of the heavy contest kids, and this goes from snowboarding to skating or whatever, they just show up at the X Games and everyone simply shows up to their signing instead of, you know, going out. I mean, myself, it's taken me a long time to realize the importance of a shop tour and what that really means to the retailer and what it means to a town, you know. But a lot of these kids, you know, they're too young to get it. You know, everything's handed to them on a silver platter, and it's really, you know, they groan at having to sit there for 15 minutes and sign autographs for 1 million people who are going to go out and buy their gear afterwards. So here it goes back to, again, like having somebody at the top of the company that can actually help these kids along and know that it is a business. It's not always the you show, you know, even though you've got your, you know, your shoe and your board and everything else that has your name on it. It's not always about you if you want to be successful.
Yeah, I think the disconnect between the generations is probably, you know, the struggles that we went through to make it, you know, possible for them to have it all on a silver platter really quickly. You know, and I think that they're recognizing that as time goes on, and I think the history of the sport is being more brought up, you know, and the roots of it and what we have done and those stories that need to be told. I think to even business owners that have just come into the industry, they don't know the history of what we went through to make it possible for it to be where it's at today. And so those stories I think are interesting and probably, you know, motivating for even people who come into the industry today, because it shows you what we went through to make it possible. And I think that, you know, guys like maybe a Sheckler or anyone in his genre, that generation, you know, they are showing respect, you know, to us, and they have, you know, they may have a difficult time dealing with all the popularity and the celebrity and the fans and everything, the media that's just trying to use them and exploit them and really make money off of them. And I think that's where what he's saying, you need somebody who's going to, you know, be able to keep them from losing their minds, basically, and becoming a drug addict or getting depressed or not being able to handle the pressures and quitting. And we see a lot of kids quit skateboarding because of the pressure or because of the no mentoring, you know what I mean? You got these kids that are talented and just get lost because the pressures are just too great. And so that's something that is really crucial, because there's so many good skaters now, tons of them at young ages, you know, that are great, that they either need their parents, like my parent, you know, drove me to contest, you know, and we slept in the parking lot in the car, woke up early to skate the contest, paid for my own entry fee, and that's how it was back in the day. And we were, you know, pros were making $400 for first place, and we were skating like we skate today. And so that story, I think, is starting to get known. I think people are more interested in that, and that's what's kind of connecting that generation where, you know, the youngers to who we are. Obviously, he's pro 30 years, you know, 3 decades of being a professional. Me, 29 years coming up this year. And so we've been through the ups and downs, and I think that these kids, if they want to kind of like continue, you know, and we, you know what, we are blessed to still have that place, because there's not too many. But these kids that want to stick around, they're going to need somebody to help them get through, or else, you know, they're going to be just a statistic and lost, and they're going to be having a job somewhere doing something else.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. I'd just like to say I never ever thought I'd be in a panel with these guys growing up in Massachusetts. I think that's pretty awesome.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you very much.